You know that specific moment in the conversation, a new colleague, a family gathering, a dinner, where someone mentions their car payment the way most people mention rent or groceries, just another fixed cost in the monthly accounting. Somewhere between $500 and $700 paid automatically every single month for the next 5 years. And you listen. You nod. You do not say what you are thinking. What you are thinking is that you have never had that number. Not once. Not because the cars you've driven were unreliable or embarrassing or somehow beneath what a person at your income level should be driving. Simply because you decided a long time ago that if you could not pay for it outright, you could not afford it. While across the table, someone is calculating how many more months until the payment finally stops, and whether by then they'll want a different car anyway. Here is what almost nobody calculates about a car payment. The monthly number is the point, not the price of the car, not the total interest, not the full cost of ownership over the life of the loan. Just the monthly number, small enough to feel manageable, large enough to be the second or third biggest line item in most household budgets, paid every month for 5 or 6 years without anyone ever sitting down to add it all up. The average car payment on a new vehicle in America recently crossed $726 per month with an average loan term of 68 months. That is nearly $50,000 paid for a car that will be worth significantly less than that by the time the last payment clears. The dealership does not present it as $50,000. It presents it as $726 a month. The difference between those two numbers, the way one feels manageable and the other feels alarming, is not an accident. It is the entire business model. And the loan term has been quietly expanding for decades, from 36 months to 48 to 60 to 72. Not because cars got more expensive in ways that justified longer debt, but because longer terms lower the monthly number. And the monthly number is all most people are actually looking at. Nobody at the dealership adds it up for you. You only meet the real number later, quietly, in the arithmetic of 68 months of statements. And by then, the car has already depreciated past the point where the math was ever going to be kind. There is a name for why the monthly payment feels so different from the total price. Behavioral economists call it payment myopia. Research by Richard Thaler and colleagues showed that people systematically evaluate affordability by the size of individual payments rather than the total cost, treating a series of smaller numbers as fundamentally different from the single large number they add up to, even when the arithmetic is identical. A car at $32,000 feels expensive. The same car at $520 a month for 72 months feels reasonable, even though the second number, multiplied out, is larger than the first, once interest is included. The framing changes the feeling entirely, and the feeling is what drives the decision. Refusing a car payment is not a discipline exercise. It is refusing to let the framing make the decision, insisting on seeing the full number before the brain has a chance to evaluate the monthly one and decide it is fine. But payment myopia only takes hold because of what the culture has already decided about car payments specifically. For years, the social script has been the same. Everyone has a car payment. It is simply part of adult life, the way rent and utilities are. Someone who drives a paid-off car, especially an older one, is not making a financial decision. They are either struggling or eccentric or both. Never having a car payment is not financial deprivation. It is the specific refusal to evaluate a large purchase through the smallest possible lens, and to insist that the real question is not what the monthly number feels like, but what the total number actually is. And the data confirms what the refusal already knew. Experian's automotive finance data shows that more than 80% of new car purchases in America are financed. The normalization is total. which means the people who never finance are a genuine minority, not because they cannot access credit, but because they looked at the mechanism and decided not to participate in it. 3 forces. A brain that treats monthly payments as a different category of number from the total they represent. A culture that normalizes financing so completely that refusing it reads as eccentric rather than careful. And a number, the full one, totaled across 68 months, quietly proving that the monthly frame was never designed to make the purchase look affordable. It was designed to make the decision feel easier than it was. It was there, the first car purchase that happened with cash, not a large amount, not an impressive vehicle, just the number that was available and the car that fit inside it. And the specific, unremarkable freedom of driving away from the transaction without anything left to pay. No monthly reminder arriving in an inbox, no lender with a claim on the next 5 years of income, no fine print that would require rereading when circumstances changed. It was there, the conversation at the office, where 3 colleagues compared payments, the amounts, the remaining months, whether they were thinking about trading in before the loan was done, and the quiet, complete absence of anything to contribute to that particular conversation because there was no payment to compare. It was there the year the unexpected expense arrived, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that demands immediate resolution, and the only calculation required was whether the money existed, not whether a payment could be paused or restructured or added to a pile of obligations that was already spoken for. It was there the moment of realizing that the car had been paid for twice over in the time a financed version would still have had years left on the loan, that the decision to buy only what could actually be afforded had compounded into something the monthly payment version of the same choice would never quite reach. It was there the month the job changed. Not a catastrophe, not a crisis, just the specific uncertainty of a transition that hadn't fully resolved yet, and running through the list of fixed obligations that would continue regardless, and finding that the car was not on it. One less thing that needed to be solved. One less number that would keep arriving whether the month was stable or not. These are not people who cannot get approved for a car loan. Most of them have the credit score, the income history, the financial profile that would qualify them for exactly the kind of financing they have chosen never to use. Some of them have been pre-approved without asking. Some have walked into dealerships, been offered attractive rates, and declined on principle. Not because the rate was bad, but because the frame was. They are the person who, when asked what they paid for their car, gives a total instead of a monthly number, something close to this. $11,000, 3 years ago. It runs fine. I'll drive it until it doesn't. That is not someone who cannot afford something better. That is someone who redefined what better means. Not the newest model, not the lowest monthly payment, but the cleanest transaction, the one that ends the moment it's made and asks nothing further. They do not think about their car in monthly terms. The question of what it costs was answered once, in full, at a specific moment in a specific year, and has not required revisiting since. Not because it never needs maintenance, but because maintenance is a known and manageable cost, not a permanent obligation to a lender who profits from the arrangement regardless of what happens to the car. They stopped using the age of the car in the driveway as a measurement of financial success a long time ago, and found that once that stopped, the question of upgrading simply stopped arriving. And the next time someone asks whether they thought about upgrading to something newer, that question already has an answer ready. Now, finally, the objection. Financing makes sense if the interest rate is low enough. You could invest the cash instead and come out ahead. A car payment isn't always the wrong move. This is not about people who genuinely need financing to have reliable transportation. If that is where you are, nothing here is meant to make a real constraint feel like a personal failure. It isn't one. This is about people who reframed the question entirely. Not what can I afford per month, but what can I actually afford? And found the answer changed everything. And the arbitrage argument carries less weight than it assumes. The mathematics of investing the difference only works consistently for people who actually invest the difference, who take the amount that would have gone to a payment every month without exception and redirect it somewhere it compounds. The research on whether people reliably do this is not encouraging. What the payment-free car buyer reliably does is eliminate a fixed obligation, one that continues regardless of what the market does, what the job does, what the month brings. The absence of the payment is the certainty. The investment arbitrage is the theory. There are people who could write the check tomorrow and choose financing for other reasons. Those people are not evaluating the payment. They are evaluating the balance sheet, which is exactly the opposite of what most buyers do, and exactly what this is about. The people who never have a car payment are not avoiding a financial tool. They are simply refusing to let a lender have a claim on the next 5 years of their income simply because everyone else signed the same agreement without reading the total at the bottom. Here is what most people get backwards. The person with the newer car and the monthly payment is not more financially capable. They have simply made a lender a fixed claim on their income for the next 5 or 6 years. A claim that continues whether the month is good or difficult, whether the car is still worth what was paid for it or not. The person with the paid-off car made a different calculation. Not what the monthly number felt like, but what the total number was, and whether that total could be covered without a lender's involvement. That calculation took longer. It required saving before buying rather than buying before saving. It required resisting the specific discomfort of driving something older while the money accumulated. And then it was done, once, completely, without a sequel. Most people buy the car they want. These people buy the car they can afford. And the person who asked the second question is not driving something embarrassing. They are simply driving something that belongs to them completely, immediately, without a payment arriving every month to remind them that it doesn't yet. There is a moment people who have always paid for their cars outright all describe in almost the same way. It is not the day the car was purchased. It is not the moment the title arrived with no lender's name on it. It is an ordinary Tuesday, driving somewhere unremarkable, the grocery store, the office, somewhere that doesn't require a memorable car, and noticing, briefly, that the vehicle is simply there, paid for, owned, not costing anything this month beyond fuel and the occasional maintenance it has always needed. Not pride, not superiority, just the specific, quiet absence of a number that arrives on the first of every month for most of the people driving the same roads, accepted as normal, rarely questioned, almost never totaled up to see what it actually came to. Not because the car is extraordinary, because the transaction that put it there was already finished. The payment was never the point. What never having one said about every other financial decision was. 10 years from now, nobody asks what monthly payment you had. They ask whether you ever once let a lender decide what you could afford. Have you ever had a car payment? And has anyone ever made you feel like not having one was the wrong call? Drop it below. We read every single one.